Outstanding, the ultimate accolade for teachers. We challenge primary teacher Halima Hussain to go from good to outstanding. A top inspector will observe one lesson. 2 experts will fine-tune her practice and beef up her presentation. She then gets 2 weeks to take on the advice before the inspector comes back for the final verdict.
Going to outstanding? Hold on, that's actually a big thing. This is my 3rd year of actually teaching, and it seems like a very long time, but in teaching it's actually quite new, and in teaching doesn't matter how long you've been teaching, 10, 20 years, you're always learning and you've always got room for improvement.
Brampton Primary is a 3-form entry school in East London. The school rates Halima's teaching as good.
When I say freeze, you just stop there and I'll come and touch your shoulder and ask you what you're feeling.
What are you doing?
Freeze.
Can we up, miss?
To be told that I'm good, the idea of that is, wow, I'm good, that I'm trying to sink that in, and then go into outstanding, hold on, that's actually a big thing. I'm actually quite critical of myself. I'm always prepared, I do background research pretty much every lesson, and my marking will always inform me as to how to continue the following lesson, which is an aspect of good teaching.
This year, Halima is teaching a Year 4 class and will focus the Good to Outstanding challenge on her science lessons.
I think my teacher is excellent because she makes the lessons fun.
I think she does her job very nicely. She's strict, she's funny and she's kind. All 3 mixed together. I like her as a teacher.
If you can't finish a conclusion, don't worry, we're going to finish it next lesson. I'm not going to say I've got outstanding qualities as of yet, because being in teaching for 2 years, I haven't reached that goal yet, but I hope to reach an outstanding goal very soon.
It's the day of her observation.
Ooh, very anxious, and I don't know how to cope with her at the moment, so I'm trying my best to do some breathing exercises, see how that turns out.
With hundreds of inspections under her belt, School Inspector Claire Gillies leads inspection teams up and down the country. She certainly knows an outstanding lesson when she sees one.
I'm at Brampton Primary School to see Halima Hussain teaching Year 4 Science.
Halima has got a 70-minute lesson to impress our inspector.
So now we're going to do an investigation today to find out whether taller people have longer hands than shorter people. Let's look at our vocabulary for the day, and I'm going to have this up all day long for you to use. Measure.
Measure.
Victoria, do you know what measure means?
It's like when you measure your forearm.
Good. When we measure something, we use something to find out how long or how big it is. Well done. Good girl. Predict.
Predict.
What does predict mean, Danielle?
Say when we did trying to find out which material to keep the tea hottest.
Well done. Carry on.
Guessing which one might keep it the hottest or something like that.
When I observe a lesson, I'm looking for lots of exemplary features, but very convincing high-quality learning from certainly the great majority of children in the class.
Riley thinks how tall you are does not affect the length of your hands because taller people do not have longer hands because. And the last kid, he's predicted, taller people have longer hands because. Now you're going to go to your topic tables and then you've got to write one of these predictions out and you've got to finish it off.
I like it when we had to predict 3 different things and say why would you want to predict that.
Remember to keep the tape measure stretched. If you leave it loose, it still won't be a fair test and the results won't be reliable. In your science books, you write the person's name, you write their height in centimetres, rounded to the nearest centimetre, and the hand length.
When you do experiments, you find something new. You're not doing the just boring thing. You find something new, which I like. I like to discover things, and science is a subject that you can do that.
131. There we go. That's 60 centimetres.
Now we've got a few minutes to look at our results. I'm going to quickly look at someone's book instead of making it up. 16, 15 and 15. Interesting. As they get taller, do the hand lengths get taller? Do the hand lengths get shorter? Or do they stay the same? What happens? Look at your prediction. Is your prediction supported or not?
When you do science, you actually discover new things. I mean, because if there wasn't science, you wouldn't discover new things from scientists.
Okay, let's just get a few suggestions of what you found out. Did the hands get bigger as the person got taller? Shiransi, what did your results show?
When you're shorter, your hand length is smaller. Then when you get taller, your hand length gets bigger.
Okay, so what was your prediction then?
My prediction was that the longer you are, it doesn't affect the length of your hand.
Oh, okay, interesting.
With time running out, Halima has to cut short her plenary.
Put these in your books, tidy up everything, leave everything and get your coats and line up.
So how did Halima get on?
Halima, thank you very much. It was a really enjoyable science lesson there.
Thank you.
We've got lots of support and sort of encouragement all the time, which is excellent. You made it all fun. That's the great thing, you know, it was all quite jolly. So that was lovely. And there were just little sort of small bits and pieces here and there that didn't quite come off. Would it have got us off to a speedier and more accurate start if we'd had a demonstration of measuring really well with two of them or something?
I think so, definitely.
Clearly we ran out of time. I think it would have been nice to have got to that crunchy point, you know, whereby they could sort of say, oh, they do always, or no, it's not so straightforward, because we had some lovely different predictions, didn't we?
Definitely the lesson went too quickly at the end and I didn't spend time with the plenary, so I couldn't establish what every child found out, to be honest.
It's always that interesting element with science. Why are we interested in whether our hand and our height are linked in any way? Just so that as a thought, if we did head circumference and hands, we could have been considering, I was a bit absurd this, but manufacturers making hats and gloves, and does the size increase?
Oh, right.
I think what we wanted young people to realise from as early as possible that science underpins so much of their lives that it's really vital that everyone has a good understanding of science. And I think your lesson as a whole, I would say, was a good lesson. I hope that's what you felt as well. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed the afternoon a lot.
There were little technical things which I need to improve on. Like the time management, maybe if I did less work on the carpet and more of them doing independent work, that's something that would improve my lessons and further their learning.
The inspector highlighted Halima's need to consider the context of her science lessons while keeping a watchful eye on her timings. With the first observation behind her, it's time to bring on the experts. To boost Halima's progress, help comes from voice and communications coach Ulrika Schulte-Bauklow and primary science consultant John Stringer. They start by watching Halima's lesson.
Remember to keep the tape measure stretched. If you leave it loose, it still won't be fair test and the result won't be reliable.
What did you think about her way of communicating with the children? Did you feel she'd really got them in the palm of her hand?
I think she does, but I feel she could do definitely more. I noticed in the moment where she tried to demonstrate things, it was not as clear as it could have been. So I will work mainly with her on how to make herself more expressive.
This is a very brave lesson, I think, because this is an open-ended investigation. It's courageous to let the children roll on this question and find out their own answers. In fact, she has a problem because sometimes they don't come up with what she's expecting, and she has to handle that as well. And I'll be picking up on what to do when you don't get the answers you're expecting, because that can happen to the best of us.
Halima, it's good to meet you after watching you on film as I have. When you were at the whiteboard and you were looking at the table, you suddenly realised, I think, that the figures you'd taken...
Yes.
Go on, tell us more.
I should have had some results up rather than getting just randomly another child's book and looking through them. And then I looked at them and I was like, okay, this is not going to work. But I had to put it up. I didn't want to go and get another book out.
This is reality. This is science.
I guess,
Science doesn't always do what you expect it to do. Some of us would use idealised data. So here are some perfect children who, just by chance, happen to have hands that get larger nicely as they grow taller. But in reality, this doesn't happen. This is an enormously helpful thing for children to learn about because it's their opportunity to discover that science isn't finite, science hasn't finished, it's always growing. We're learning something new from it. Very often the differentiation is in the degree of presentation. So, for example, you set the class going and you say to a group, you know, you carry on and I'll come across and check on you. You say to a second group, perhaps not so able, get as far as the first measurement and I'll come and check. And then with a third group, you say, don't do anything till I come and talk to you, or involve your education assistant. I feel, too, you could have involved her more. Now, I'm sure you prepared her and she knew what the lesson was about and she knew what your learning outcomes were planned to be. But to use her well is to involve her in the children all the time. So she might have, for example, have been interpreting some of those questions that you were asking in your initial presentation to other children in the classroom.
I didn't use her very effectively, I don't think.
Having made a table, which I was pleased to see them doing, the next step is then to be able to graph them. You could also have made some sort of a bar chart where, in fact, people looked at arm length for different children, but you could, in fact, have had perhaps their heights along here and then the number of children with different lengths of arm up that side. But it begins to get quite complicated, and a scattergram's probably better. A scattergram could have been interesting and might have shown a general trend.
Now, tell me, 131.
I think it's important that the science has some purpose in real life. And I would look at two things. It may be that what you need to do is compare not height with hand size, but age with hand size. Now then you would perhaps begin to see that older people have larger hands. The other thing that you might think of to make the lesson more relevant is to look at skills. And they could be quite simple skills, like, for example, with hand size, can people with bigger hands hold more marbles?
Oh, right, yeah.
And then you could begin to say, well, then, if we were making gloves for our class and our age range, just what size would we need them? And that perhaps would relate things more to real life.
Themselves.
At the end, things didn't quite go the way you wanted them to. And one of the things that makes a lesson exceptional and outstanding is to be able to accept that and to come to terms with the fact that you didn't get the result you were looking for. And remember, if you're a year 4, you want a perfect answer. You want your graph to look just right. And life isn't like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things they've got to accept is that their graph may not show exactly what they were expecting.
Ulrika works with Halima to make her gestures more expansive and improve her articulation.
And now we take our hands to do ooh-wee, ooh-wee, ooh-wee. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee, ooh-wee. Pitta, patta, pitta, patta, pitta, patta, pitta, patta, pitta, patta, pitta, patta.
Combining demonstration with clear verbal instructions can help Halima communicate more effectively with her pupils.
You add a tea bag into this mug. You place it down. Then I take the kettle.
Put the kettle on, switch it on so it boils. Once it's finished boiling, take the kettle off, pour the water into the mug, put the kettle back.
Show me how it tastes.
Comme c'est comme ça.